We just witnessed the weekly candle close for crypto, and well, it was underwhelming. Let's just be honest here. It wasn't significant at all. Didn't really expect it to be that crazy of a weekly candle close. I'm more so looking at the 14th, which is in 1 week, to see how the market closes because that's leading into FOMC week. Now, do I think that there's going to be some price volatility this week? 100%. And we'll talk about why in this video. But the main thing that I'm looking at is September 17th. I do think that that's going to be the day where the Fed ignites the bull run and gives us the first official rate cut of the year, leading into the October rate cut as well as the December rate cut. Now, just taking a quick look at the market on the daily, there isn't really a lot of gains in the altcoin market. We've been paying attention to a few of these altcoins that are starting to move a bit, but outside of that, most of the altcoin market is down on the daily. If we're looking at XRP on the daily, it's up about 1.8%. But as you guys can see on Bitcoin, it's only up about 0.4% roughly. There's really not a lot of price action right now, and there hasn't been over the last 7 days. And this is starting to pinpoint to the idea of retail getting a little bit impatient, getting tired of the price action. And it's the perfect recipe for individuals to sell too early, to get shaken out. And this is also why I keep telling everyone to really focus on the big facts here, which is, we're headed into the FOMC meeting with a pretty good idea of what's going to be hitting the markets. We are probably going to get a rate cut on September 17th. And if we do, that's the spark that will light the match to really ignite the bull run. Now, if we're thinking about that, we are also looking at the crypto market right now. We're just hovering around 3.83 trillion. Not a lot of changes happening in the market since going all the way back here to the first, which, if we're thinking about that, that was 6 days ago. So the market has just been kind of quiet. I like it. I actually really enjoy when the market's this boring because it gives us a better insight on what we should be doing, which I know that we shouldn't be just openly buying the dip, but I do think that some accumulation here is not a bad idea, especially when we look back at the 1 year and we look at where we just dipped down into. It's very similar to those price moves from like roughly the beginning of August, and we already know what happened from that point on. The market bounced back in a big way. So, I'm not dead set on this being our bottom, but I'm also not too concerned about us dipping like too much further down right now on Bitcoin and, for the rest of the market, which we'll talk about a few levels to really kind of look at. But also the fear and greed, about 42. Again, a very solid level to be buying the dip at, because going all the way back in time, and we're even going all the way back to like 2024, most of these levels were prime time areas for buying. I mean, even back here in July of 2024, solid buy opportunity. In August, solid buy opportunity. In September, solid buy opportunity. Even in October, almost into November. Again, solid buy opportunities right before the market went into that extreme greed level. So, this is basically that midline. This is that midline where the market is a little bit boring. Maybe there was some negative price action as well in the market. This is where the market is, I would say, prime time for accumulation. So accumulate here. You won't regret it by the end of Q4. I don't believe so, at least. And if we're thinking about the fear and greed index, we're also looking at the stock market futures. Again, futures not looking the greatest. I mean, this is very shallow gains for the futures. I mean, even the Dow Jones is only up about roughly 0.03%. S&P 0.09%, and then the NASDAQ 0.23%. So again, not a very good insight on stocks and how stocks will open, but stocks were not too bad on Friday. I know that we did have a little bit of a sell-off. It could definitely continue going into the open today. But beyond that, looking at Bitcoin on the 7-day span, this is what the 7-day looks like. Now, taking a quick look at Bitcoin on TradingView, we can see where we are trading around. We're still in that red zone. And on the weekly, it wasn't a bad weekly close. We closed right around 111 point, roughly like 2K. We still closed above those May highs, which was a good sign of strength on Bitcoin. However, looking at a few things like the MACD and the RSI. So MACD is showing us just momentum, right? Bearish momentum is starting to pick up a bit here. And it goes all the way back here to, February into March, where we started to see this really building in pressure. Now, by the time that it gets extremely, bearish, right? And I'm talking about like the momentum here is extreme. It will already be too late, right? We should already see that big sell off. Now, the question here is, are we going to repeat back here? I don't believe so, right? The momentum around the bearish price action was pretty significant during that time. We had the trade war, the tariff discussions. Right now, currently, what I would be looking at, especially with even RSI, right? RSI is still kind of in the, neutral but almost overbought territory. I would be looking at a potential retest of a new low. That new low would be around 104.7K, and that's still a higher low going off of the June lows. So I wouldn't be too mad about that. It would cause a little bit more pain and a lot more fear in the market before we have that big impulsive move off of that bottom blue zone. Now, again, do we need to see this? No, absolutely not. We don't need to see this, but it would be something interesting to see in the market to see how many people were leveraged here to really kind of wipe out liquidity from the market and also, grab some liquidity on the lows here as well to support a much larger move. But again, the reason why I'm very cautious here on Bitcoin is not just because of the MACD and the RSI, but it's also because of the blood moon. Big shout out to Ted Pillis for this. Now, again, are we putting a ton of weight behind this? Not exactly, but every single time that we've had a blood moon since going all the way back to May of 2021, this has been very bearish. Another one is happening today into tomorrow, and I think that it will be bearish for Bitcoin and altcoins. It seems like a dump below 100K is highly likely. Now, the question is, do we see a drop below 100K here, or are we just going to continue to chop here a little bit? Well, if we're going to repeat the previous push to the downside, and you guys already know I hate using bars graph, but just for reference, if we're going to see a massive crash, it would be very similar to that price action back in March, where we just kind of chop here and then we break below 100K slightly. I'm not expecting us to break below 100K. I'm not expecting us to get that extreme violent price action to the downside, but it's definitely possible to see 100K being retested or possibly even under 100K being targeted as well. Like, for example, the midline here wouldn't be too bad of an area for us to retest, which would be around roughly like $98,000. But I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting us to hold these lows around like roughly 104K. But I just want you guys to be aware of why, we are very cautious right now. Now, again, being very cautious and just having some stablecoins on the sidelines is not a bad idea, especially leading into the FOMC week. And here we have from the Kobayashi letter that the Fed is about to join the global rate cut cycle. There have now been 88 rate cuts worldwide year to date, the most since 2020. This puts 2025 on track for the third fastest global cutting cycle on record, according to Bank of America. The ECB and the Bank of England have cut rates 4 to 3 times this year, respectively. The Bank of Canada has cut rates 2 times, as has the Swiss National Bank, which became the first major central bank to bring rates back to 0%. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve remains on hold with 0 rate cuts in 2025. U.S. monetary policy is in its own world. So, yeah, listen, if we're thinking about this, yes, we should be seeing rate cuts, and they should be starting on September 17th, which is only roughly 10 days away. It's technically not even 10 days. It's a little bit less than 10 days. And I even said on X that there is now a 100% chance of the Fed cutting rates in September, October, and December. You better be locked in or you are about to be locked out. And if we're looking at this, right, the next FOMC meeting is in 9 days, 15 hours, sorry. And by the time that this video goes live, it's going to be a little bit less. But regardless of that, yeah, we have a 100% chance in September, October, and also even December of, getting rate cuts. Now, if we are going to see that happen, then yes, this is going to ignite the entire market. And yes, when we think about XRP, when we think about altcoins themselves, XRP right now on the weekly still looks pretty good. We're bouncing off those lows. So far, we have been maintaining this. We could definitely flip this blood moon narrative and we could start to see Bitcoin and the entire market wake back up in a big way. It's definitely possible, but we still need to be cautious here just while the market is trying to bounce back and while we still wait for positive price action, especially confirmations on the daily or the 3-day candle close. But XRP still looking very, very good here. I mean, we are starting to clear some levels on the chart. We mainly want to see a big break, and I would argue that we want to see a weekly candle close either over, $2.94, or if we're going all the way back here to January, getting a nice weekly close over $3 and 3.5 cents is not a bad start for XRP to have this big recovery happen on the chart as well. So that's what I'm watching with XRP. And by the way, if we're still concerned about how altcoins are trading, don't be too worried. I mean, listen, others' dominance is starting to gain a little bit of momentum here. Similar to Bitcoin, right? The MACD, the bearish momentum is starting to cool off. We just had a moving average cross on the RSI on the 3-week as well. The last time that we had a cross on this chart like this was back here in June of 2023. As you guys can see, back in June of 2023, we started to see that big spike all the way into December and the beginning of 2024. This was the last time where most altcoins actually topped out. You could go and look at Ondo, Axler, most altcoins during 2024, towards the end of 2023, right, we're starting to wake up in a big way. And that's because others' dominance was gaining a ton of momentum in the market. And that's exactly what we're looking at happening here as well, because the others' dominance MACD is starting to cool off, very similar back to this time leading into, 2023. And this just continued all the way through the first quarter of 2024. So that's why we're looking at this. That's why we're paying attention to others' dominance right now. And this is what's going to also wake up the entire market. And guess what really helps this push to the upside is the Fed cutting rates, causing a ton of fresh liquidity to enter the market. This will also lead to altcoin season, just like if we go back to the halving days, right? Bitcoin halving 400 days is typically the time frame, even going back to 2017, even going back to 2021. And so far, 2025, we are in that 400-day area where we should start to see altcoins really just going crazy and Bitcoin dominance selling off in a big way. That's also going to lead to others' dominance spiking in a big way as well. And just going off of this chart real quick, I just want to go to Bitcoin dominance just to kind of show you guys where we're at right now. It looks as though Bitcoin dominance is ready to have another big crash here. It's very similar to the price action that we saw back here in July, towards the end of July, where we did top out and then boom, we just had a weekly candle that was extremely bearish for 3 weeks in a row. And that could definitely be what's starting to brew here for Bitcoin dominance. So right now, I understand that we still need to be very cautious. We still need to be very patient, but I am very bullish on altcoins going into Q4, and this is what's really going to allow us to wake up in a big way around the altcoin market. And the Fed is definitely going to add, a lot of fuel to that fire, because I do think that they are going to officially start the next big wave of the cycle on September 17th. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on, because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.